Thank you, Carrie. It's great to be with everyone. We are in amazing times, really extraordinary times. I have a teacher who talks about it as special times, and I think that as Unity students, we have an opportunity to hold these times as really special, extraordinary times for transformation, not only in our own lives and in our families, but globally. We are praying for such a transformation. So my talk today is courageous compassion or compassionate courage. I haven't really figured out if one or the other really begins as the adverb and the adjective. So we're just gonna focus on this energy of what it means to come into the presence of this entire experience from a place of opening the heart. You know, the word cœur is the French word for heart. And so courage really comes from that heart connection. And for most of us, when we think about compassion, we at least try to think that we're connected in from the heart. So what I'd like to explore today is a couple of things. I have these wonderful teachings that I get in India that really combine the metaphysics that we understand and know in Unity with ancient spiritual traditions that are thousands and thousands of years old in the teaching of ways for us to calm the mind and connect more deeply to a higher consciousness, a greater presence of the divine. And I also have, as part of my teachings in India, scientific backgrounds that really validate a lot of these teachings that we know in Unity and that we know from these ancient traditions, mystical traditions that come out of the East. So it's a beautiful combination to hold. And I really felt like today, that's what I really wanted to do with you, because I feel like this church and all of you have a very high permeability for moving into higher states of transformation and consciousness. And I say that from a deep place of gratitude for being able to speak to Unity in Santa Rosa, because it's not the case of every church that opening and that permeability to move into higher states of consciousness is there. So blessings to all of you. I'm really grateful to be able to be with you today. One of the Bible quotes that I want to begin with is from Samuel 1. The quote is, "Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. And I think it's really important for us to understand this. And I prayed that I would get a Bible passage that I could use to really articulate the lesson that I want to explore today with you. And of course, 4 or 5 days ago, the right one just came to me, and I'm really excited to be able to kind of weave our Unity metaphysics into some understanding about brain science, and also give you a couple of wonderful ways that you might focus your meditation experience today. So the Bible passage that came to me is the story of the centurion and the healing of the centurion's slave. And I could read the passage. It comes in Luke. For those of you who want to look in the Bible, maybe after the talk and read it, it's in Luke chapter 7. It's also in Matthew chapter 8. Both of these have a little different take on it. And, you know, it's interesting because Matthew was a tax collector, and Matthew was one of Jesus's disciples. And right here, you know, there's a message for all of us in terms of who Jesus was and who he was here to serve and to heal and to be in a deep place of higher consciousness with. He was here not only just to be with those who have already been studying the Jewish traditions, but he was here to be with the people who were basically shunned. The tax collectors were like, you know, dirty money, dirty. They were not people that the culture would interact with. And yet Jesus had Matthew as one of his disciples, and there are stories in the Bible of Jesus connecting with Zacharias, who also was a tax collector. And so many stories that we find in the Bible where Jesus is going to speak to the sinners, speaking to women, speaking to people that were the untouchables, the lepers. And so this particular story is another one of those examples. And I'd like to hold it in the consciousness for all of us metaphysically. We're going to just kind of explore this story as it tells us more about who we are in the world right now. And I think it's very appropriate. So the story is that Jesus had just been speaking the Sermon on the Mount and was coming down from Capernaum and walking out of town. And according to the story in Luke, this group of Jewish elders came toward him and said, "We have gotten word that a Roman centurion needs your help. He has a slave, and the slave is at home. He's lying paralyzed, and he's terrified and fearful that he will die. And he has sent us, these Jewish elders, to speak to you and ask you to come to him and heal his servant." Well, this already is pretty unusual because the Roman centurion is a Gentile. He's not part of the Jewish culture, and that the Jewish elders would even connect with the Roman centurion is something for us to be aware of in consciousness. So they said, well, Jesus, you should really help this man because he's built a synagogue for us. So there was some aspect of this centurion. And again, a centurion is a warrior, a soldier who has 100 men under him. That's the centurion part of him, century. So the elders came and spoke to Jesus, and Jesus began on his way toward the centurion's house. And as he was walking that way, another man or group of men, we're not really sure, came out, friends of the centurion, and said, "Oh, no, you don't need to come." Because the centurion said, he knows your power. He knows the power that you have. You don't even need to come to his home. And the centurion says to Jesus that, I know who you are, basically. You're like me. I'm a man of power. And I say to my men, go, and they go. And I say to my servants, do this, and they do this. And I know this is the truth of you, so you don't even need to come to my house. All you need to do is speak the word. And I know my servant will be healed. And Jesus is astounded. And this is a story that we often hear that demonstrates the faith of the centurion. Jesus is saying, I've not seen such faith. And here, this is a Gentile. This is a Roman soldier. This is not one of my people. This is not one of the Jewish scribes. This is not one of my disciples. This is somebody outside my normal community. And yet he has more faith than most of the people that walk with me. And that's one aspect of the story, but it's not the aspect that I'd like to really look at with you today, because I think the story has a deeper meaning for us during what we can call these very special times. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of pull apart each of the characters in this story and have us see how they're an aspect of who we are, and especially how they're an aspect of who we are during these very, very extraordinary times. And I wish I could be standing there with you, because my way to speak is always to interact with you. So this is a little challenging that I'm sitting in my living room staring at a green dot and not having that kind of interaction with you, but I'm not quite sure how we can do it on Zoom today. So I'm just going to have to pretend that you're responding to me. But I hope that as we go through this kind of metaphysical exercise of this Bible passage, that you will really look inside yourself and see which aspects in the story are very active for you, or maybe how they have flowed through your life in the past weeks. And for most of us, it's been more than weeks. It's been a month plus. So first of all, the servant. The servant, they tell us, is at home, lying paralyzed. And how many people during this time, when we're sheltering in place, are feeling this sense of being paralyzed? Perhaps it's feeling paralyzed because we are uncertain about the next moment. We're uncertain about our future. The story also says that there was fear, and the fear was in both the servant who was on the brink of death, and also the fear was in his master. So looking at that, take a look at that inside yourself. Now, some of us know people who have been diagnosed with the virus. My son was diagnosed very, very early on, and he's healthy and well and doing fine. And none of the family has contracted the virus. But there was that moment when I got the call and he told me that he had the virus 5 weeks ago. You know, that came to me. Some of us may even know people who have contracted the virus and passed on. Certainly, I know people in the community at Unity of Richmond, someone who has actually succumbed to the virus, who had an underlying health condition. But just be aware of this situation of being sheltered in place, feeling that sense of maybe paralysis, of not really knowing what's the next step, even not knowing what to do. I hear there are people who are bored. I'm not on that train at all. I think I have more to do now than I've ever had in my life. But also this sense of how we can become gripped in fear in our life. So that servant can represent an aspect of us, a deep place within us that can hold any three of these qualities: this sense of being paralyzed or stuck, the sense of having fear, maybe anger because of the situation, and again, that we're at home while it's happening. And then there's the centurion. Now the centurion, he is such a powerful part of who we are. This man, although he was a man of power, and I like to think of, if we look in the consciousness of who we are, I like to think of the quality of the centurion, the one who is in charge, is that sort of executive function of the mind. He had the ability to speak to his men, and he could say, do this, and they would do this. He could talk to his servant and ask his servant to do something, and the servant would do that. So he had a sense of mental capacity and authority that we all have. We all have this quality of mind, of mind that is able to discern what to do and to be able to direct and take right action. The quality of using the capacity of will and the power that Charles Fillmore talks about when we're talking about the 12 powers. But it's a quality that he combines with a deep place of humility. And that's the piece that I think we're being called to in this moment in time when we talk about compassionate courage or courageous compassion. Because he not only had the executive capacity of one who is in power, one who knows how to direct action and how to order action to be taken, how to tune into those qualities that his servant has. He had the heart capacity to know there's an aspect in my home, there's an aspect in my consciousness that's feeling afraid, that's almost feeling paralyzed. That aspect of the servant is in you and it's in me in the same way it's in the centurion's house. And yet, because he has this quality of humility, he's able to tap into his heart and to know that he's not the one to create the healing in this place. The healing is only to come when he connects into the quality of higher consciousness, which is the quality that Jesus holds. And so when we can connect in and understand that we each have this amazing quality within us, this kind of humble, heart-centered capacity to tap into that deep well of knowing who we are. And from that well, we can see those places not only in others, because sometimes it's easier for us to see the sadness, to see the loneliness, to see the depression, to see and feel the anger in the other. But what this is asking of us right now in these times is to see it in ourselves, to be willing to really see and acknowledge what's going on inside of us. And for most of us, because we are human beings, having this experience in our humanness, we oftentimes can forget the fact that we came in as spiritual beings and that that's our true nature, that Christed nature is who we are moment to moment. And so we can often, even in our attempt to be good unity students, we can kind of gloss over what's going on underneath, the quality that the servant is feeling, that sense of sadness, that sense of perhaps uncertainty, that sense of being paralyzed, not knowing how to handle it. And we can put an affirmation there and it doesn't go away. And what we're being told, and really the lesson that we're being given, is that there's a wisdom in the heart when we can allow ourselves to feel and to use the capacity of the heart, the brain that the heart holds. This is what the centurion was able to do. In his humility, he was able to tap into his inner knowing that he didn't know how to heal this aspect in his home, but that the higher consciousness of Jesus did. And he had such faith in that that he could completely let go. And he let go of the mental, and he allowed that heart space to take over. And it's very interesting, you know, in my teaching that's coming from India, one of the things they're often talking about is the intelligence that is in the fullness of the being that we are. Yes, we have, you know, trillions of neurons in the brain, but science tells us there are literally 40 million of these neurons in our heart that connect us directly to the brain. And so from this place of tapping into our inner experience, we can actually direct the brain to take right and literally spiritual right action moment to moment. And that's what I think that we're really called to do as Unity students right now. We're really called to embrace these teachings that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore gave us, and to understand who we are moment to moment as we not only connect into what's going on inside of us, but as we connect into the other. And whether it's the other that's with us in our family right now, whether it's the other that's a family member who's isolated in place and alone and not able to physically connect with us, but someone we can reach out and speak to, or whether we're holding an intention for those in the front lines who are doing a massive work for us in the world. The important piece for us to be aware of is, what is our inner state? What's the state of consciousness that we're holding moment to moment? What is that state of consciousness that we're holding moment to moment? What's the energy of the heart that's being held when we reach out to make a call to someone? What's the energy of our heart when we put a prayer in place for first responders? Because it's that quality of being that we hold that is the energy field that we're transmitting out in the world. This is the spiritual right action. This is the energy field that's connecting us. If we're coming from a place of fear, if we're coming from a place where that energy of the servant, that lower consciousness of fear or paralysis is causing us to take the action, we're coming from a place of disconnection. And the piece that's important for us is to tune in and see what's going on inside of me. It's my mic. Are you okay now? Should I hold my mic like this? Am I clicking now? I'm sorry, I wish somebody told me earlier if I was clicking. Okay. So the idea is that we need to be willing, before we take that step out in action, we need to be willing to tune into the heart. And if you look at the story, this is exactly what the centurion did. Initially, he said, oh, I know Jesus is the one who can heal my servant. And he sent the Jewish elders out. And then he had that realization from a place of deep humility in his heart. He knew there was something within him, a capacity within him to have faith in that higher consciousness. And he said, no, you don't even need to come. And when he's in that space of knowing, Jesus called it his faith, but I want to call it, it's in a place of the wisdom of our heart that holds a state of connection to that higher consciousness. And when we're able to come from that place of higher consciousness, whatever we do, whatever we say to others, whether it's the partner that we have in our home, whether it's our kids who are far away and we want to connect with them, whether it's somebody in the church that we know is isolated and we want to reach out, when we're reaching out from a deep awareness of clarity within the heart, yeah, you know, maybe today I was really feeling isolated. What does it feel like when I'm feeling isolated? When I'm in touch with what that feels like for me, I can speak to someone else from a deep place of inner wisdom and truth, instead of trying to make it all okay. So this is a great lesson for us, I believe, you know, and one of the things that's really powerful, I heard that we can't come from a place of fear. I was told that the people who are the Navy SEALs, you know, if we come from fear, we're coming from that place of the amygdala, the back lower part of the brain. That the Navy SEALs literally were trained to disconnect that part of the brain so they could move into places where anyone else would be terrified, physically in the outer. And they were able to move into a place in the brain called the mid-cortex, center in the brain. So what I'd love to do is, I'd love to do a meditation with you that will give you an opportunity to experience the difference in how you might move out of a place when you're feeling anxious or you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling that sense of in place, at home, paralyzed, alone, something's dying. If it's not you, you're tapping into the news and hearing too much. And you want to have an opportunity to tap inside and move out of that place of fear. Okay, we'll just see all those lights going down as they normally go down in the sanctuary, and Guy playing his very calm music in the background. So I invite you to gently close your eyes. And taking in a nice deep inhalation, breathing in and relaxing in the physical body. Taking in a few more deep conscious breaths as we allow the breath to move us away from activity of the mind. Focusing once again on a deep, deep inhalation and exhalation. As you focus on your breath, you can begin to feel a deeper sense of relaxation in the physical body. And now I invite you to become aware of whatever you might be experiencing, either a thought form that's happening, or perhaps there's some area of the body that wants your attention. Just take a moment to focus either on that area of the body or on whatever might be going through your mind right now. And if you can put a name on whatever that is, whatever that thinking is, if there's an emotion around it, just be aware of what it is. If it's physical pain, just be aware of that body. And now notice the direction of your thinking. Are you obsessing about the past? Something that happened? Or is your thinking taking you out to a chaotic, worrisome future? Or are you here, right here, in this present moment? Just be aware. And now imagine a tiny little flame right between your eyebrows, like the flame of a little candle. If you can visualize, see it right there, that flame, or just imagine it and feel it if you can't visualize, right between your eyebrows. And now gently bring it back and pull it back, that little tiny flame, and see it floating there in the center of your head. Just imagine that tiny flame floating in the center of your head for a moment. And now taking a nice deep breath and gently, when you're ready, open your eyes. Just bring yourself back to your room, to where you are. So this very simple practice is a way for us to quiet the mind and to bring our attention to a place inside our brain that is open to new ideas, open to that higher place in consciousness, call it our Christ consciousness. We literally are disconnecting ourselves from any sense of lower worry, concern, even physical pain. So I invite you to feel that presence inside yourself and to use the breath, use that awareness of that tiny little flame in the center of your head anytime to center yourself into a high state of Christ consciousness as you connect with family, as you connect with loved ones, and as you hold the high watch and prayers for healing our planet. So beautiful to be with all of you today. Thank you so much. And so we bless this day. We bless everyone who is here with us and all those in the community who are not able to be with us because they are taking care of themselves or family members. And we give thanks for the power of Unity's teachings, for the blessings that we know await us as we stay in our hearts and hold the higher watch of the Christ consciousness and all that we say and all that we do. And we feel transformation happening inside and out. And for this awareness, for the power of this community, for the grace and love that is flowing, we say, thank you, God.